So it is 9:15 and we will get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cherie Price. I am a higher education consultant from the state of Michigan, Labor and Economic Opportunity, and I work with Perkins Grant Administrate Post-Secondary team. Today, I'd like to welcome you to the session, Change the Environment, Not the Student. And our presenters today are Cammy Wayne and Nancy Moore. Cammy's passion is to help students achieve success by using an enthusiastic, hands-on approach to learning. Her doctoral research with Ferris State University focused on universal design for learning as a means to achieve success for students of varying abilities. Cammy currently works as a coordinator of her department and assist professor at William Rainey Harper College. As coordinator and educator, her priorities are motivating, engaging, and allowing people to see their full potential as future leaders. In 2020, Cammy was named the Illinois Accounting Society's Educator of the Year. Nancy Moore. Nancy's job satisfaction stems from enabling students to achieve their goals. Her doctoral research with Ferris State University focused on driving transformative change in community colleges to improve student success through guided pathways. Her research is complemented by her career, which has been built upon multi-departmental experience required to enable change and success. Through this work involving both students and institutional change initiatives, she is able to maximize student motivation and development and ensure student persistence, completion, and success. I'd like to welcome Cammy and Nancy. Thank you, and you're on.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here. And we'll get started.
Cammy and Nancy, let me just make one housekeeping thing. I apologize. If anyone wants to chat or ask questions, please use the chat function and type your questions in. Or if you would like to speak, you have to request for you to be heard. So thank you so very much.
Great, thank you. First, I'm going to make sure everybody can hear me okay, and you actually see the screen that I'm seeing. So make sure that, great. Thank you very much. So for this presentation, we wanted to use a different tool. We'll talk about different tools today that we use to reach our students. One of them is Mentimeter. And what this is a presentation platform that allows students to communicate with you and share their feelings during your presentation. It allows those students who are more introverted to speak up, and you can even limit those students who kind of talk too much or share too much so that they only have the opportunity to share one or two things. So I'm going to ask if you're able to go either on your phone or open up a new tab in your computer and go to menti.com, or you can always scan this QR code and you're going to type in, if you go to menti.com, like I'm on my cell phone, I can do that and type in this code 123311720 and hit submit. And then you'll also see the presentation on your other device or phone, and it's going to allow you to, I see some people already love it. Thank you. You can share your feelings about that. And it also allows you to ask a question. So you'll see that open question and answer. And that way, if you're presenting in a classroom, this doesn't stop the momentum of your presentation, but you can stop when there's a good stopping point and then answer all the questions that come in. Like right now, we have a question. So I can go through, open up that question, and say, yes, we are having fun already. More fun to come. So I can mark that as answered, and we'll go back to our presentation. So I'm going to give everybody just one more minute to jump on here. I think we're getting there, but you'll also see when I start flipping slides, if you ever get kicked out, that the top of the screen will always tell you how to get back in, where it says go to menti.com and use this code. That will stay on the presentation. So if you ever get lost and need to come back, please do so. The first thing I want to make sure we do is just kind of take a deep breath. All of us have crazy busy mornings. I don't know if you had to get kids off to school, yell at them to get ready, or just even have a hard time getting out of bed yourself. So we want to start our day just being grounded and ready to learn. So I'm going to ask you if you're willing to kind of go with me on this. I know sometimes people think it's a little weird, and if you think it's weird, that's okay. Then just take a minute to yourself. But we're going to just take 3 big deep breaths. And what I want you to do is feel that breath going into your chest, into your ribs, and then even feel your belly just expand. And then when you let that breath out, you're going to do it by section. So let it out from your belly, through your ribs, and through your chest. So let's do this just 2 more times. Get ourselves mentally and physically prepared to enter our day. A big deep breath in and a big deep breath out. And one more time. This not only helps you kind of prepare your students or yourself for the day, it's doing that deep belly breathing stimulates your vagus nerve, which is also a calming nerve. So your body just relaxes, and then you're more open to hearing and listening and focusing. So that's just something I usually start my classroom with, and wanted to share that with you. One thing I want to tell you is the why we're presenting on this. And did you know that 4.3 million people quit their jobs in August? 4.3 million quit, didn't get laid off, they quit. And the reason is that there's been this shift. So there's not really a job shortage, there's a job shift because there's many jobs available. It's just people have different priorities now, whether it be the pandemic or other issues that cause them to reevaluate their lives. They want something different, which is why even though in our college, our enrollment in general is down, all of our certificate programs where people are trying to get a new career started, all those program enrollments have increased dramatically because people are looking for a better life. They want a job that's 9 to 5. They don't want the jobs in the, retail or food service. So this is where we come in. Most of these individuals who are looking to make a shift in their life might not be good at school, or it's been a while since they've been in school. So our job is to change the environment to help them succeed. Still there. So I want to start first by asking you, what environment do you personally find most conducive to learning? Now you'll see this on your phone or on your screen you logged on to Menti, and you can just type in a quick answer into the box and hit submit. And then it'll start coming up here and you'll be able to see everybody's answers or their opinions on what is most helpful to them. So a lot of hands-on with feedback. I like respectful, being respectful, interactive. I see a lot of people are missing the in-person classes. I agree. I think our students are missing that too, even though they think they enjoy the flexibility of online learning. It's definitely impacting our students' success.
A lot of missing of the interactiveness. Yeah.
Yes.
And the hands-on, right?
I agree. Hybrid can work too. There's that combination of face-to-face. I think a lot of us are missing that interaction and the collaboration. And if it is online, I like the to note that we need to make it engaging, adding the videos, having that presence. Great, thank you for everyone. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next. So my question, while you're thinking about what this environment looks like, is what does your right now classroom or course look like, whether it be hybrid, online, or in person? And I'm just going to play a minute of this video because I really think it showcases what we're trying to get at.
Albert Einstein once said, "Everybody's a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid." Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today on trial we have modern day schooling. Glad you could come. Not only does he make fish climb trees, but also makes them climb down and do a 10-mile run. Tell me, school, are you proud of the things you've done? Turning millions of people into robots, do you find that fun? Do you realize how many kids relate to that fish swimming upstream in class, never finding their gifts, thinking they are stupid, believing they are useless? Well, the time has come, no more excuses. I call school to the stand and accuse him of killing creativity, individuality, and being intellectually abusive. He's an ancient institution that has outlived his usage. So, Your Honor, this concludes my opening statement, and if I may present the evidence of my case, I will prove it. Proceed. Exhibit A. Here's a modern day phone. Recognize it? Here's a phone from 150 years ago. Big difference, right? Stay with me. Here's a car from today. And here's a car from 150 years ago. Big difference, right? Well, get this. Here's a classroom of today. And here's a class we used 150 years ago. Now, ain't that a shame? In literally more than a century, nothing has changed. Yet you claim to prepare students for the future? But with evidence like that, I must ask, do you prepare students for the future or the past?
So I want you to, if you have time, go back and search this video out. It's a great video. The whole video is great, but we only have time for that small piece of it. And I just wanted to make sure that we have that frame in mind as we move forward here.
So moving forward, how does your classroom look? Does it look like the classroom from 150 years ago that hasn't changed in this video? There's been a big drive toward making sure that our classrooms are equitable and making sure that all of our students can learn. This picture that we're looking at right now depicts in each one, if we look at the first picture, equality. If you look here, you see that everybody is equal here, but is equal what we're going for? Is everybody being serviced? In the second picture that we look at, sure, everybody can see the game that's going on, everybody can participate, but are they participating in a safe manner and the way that's best for them? If we look at the third image here, we see that everybody can participate, and not only are they participating, all of the barriers have been removed for them to safely allow everybody to partake in the activity. What we'd like to talk about today, or we'd like you to think about, is how can we create conditions that afford all groups full, equal participation and equitable distribution and safety. I'd like you to think for a minute. And again, we're going to ask you to pick up your phones, and we're going to use Menti again. And we're going to ask you if you would please describe your average student as a learner. You'll have the opportunity to share up to 3 adjectives, and if you could please share those with us. Your average student as a learner. Yes, absolutely. Each one is unique and extremely busy. complex. These are awesome, motivated, curious, tech savvy, indeed. Right, we've got some of our non-traditional students in here that are becoming more our traditional students. Absolutely, multitaskers. Right, we've got some that are independent learners, some that are very much so hands-on learners. Layered, I like that. Team learners, good. Okay, these are excellent. And as you can see, when we look at our students, there is no one type of student. These adjectives are all over the board. So average, that's quite a word, average. We're going to take a few minutes now to see, to gain a new perspective on the adjective average.
Please welcome to the TEDx Sonoma County stage, Todd Rose.
It's 1952, and the Air Force has a problem. They've got good pilots flying better planes, but they're getting worse results, and they don't know why. And for a while, they blame the pilots. They even blame the technology. And they eventually got around to blaming the flight instructors. But it turned out that the problem was actually with the cockpit. Let me explain. Imagine you're a fighter pilot. You're operating a machine that in some cases can travel faster than the speed of sound, and where issues between success and failure, sometimes life and death, can be measured in split seconds. If you're a fighter pilot, you know that your performance depends fundamentally on the fit between you and your cockpit. Because after all, what good is the best technology in the world if you can't reach the critical instruments when you need them the most? But this presents a challenge for the Air Force, because obviously pilots are not the same size. So the issue is, how do you design one cockpit that can fit the most individuals? For a long time, it was assumed that you could do this by designing for the average pilot. That almost seems intuitively right. If you design something that fit for the average size person, wouldn't it fit most people? It seems right, but it's actually wrong. And 60 years ago, an Air Force researcher, Gilbert Daniels, proved to the world just how wrong this really is and what it was costing us. Here's how he did it. He studied over 4,000 pilots, and he measured them on 10 dimensions of size. And he asked a very simple question. How many of these pilots are average on all 10 dimensions? The assumption was that most of them would be. Do you know how many really were? 0. Gilbert Daniels proved there was no such thing as an average pilot. Instead, what he found was that every single pilot had what we call a jagged size profile, right? It means you're not, no one's at the same on every dimension. And this makes sense. Just because you're the tallest person doesn't mean you're the heaviest. Doesn't mean you have the broadest shoulders or the longest torso. But this is tricky because if every pilot has a jagged size profile, and you design a cockpit on average, you've literally designed it for nobody. So the Air Force realized they had a problem, and their response was bold. They banned the average, meaning that moving forward, they refused to buy fighter jets where the cockpit was designed for an average-sized pilot. And instead, they demanded that the companies who built these planes design them to the edges of dimensions of size, meaning that rather than design for, say, the average height, they wanted a cockpit that could accommodate as close to the shortest pilot and the tallest pilot as the technology would allow. Now, the companies that made these planes, as you could imagine, weren't happy, right? They argued and lobbied, and they said it's going to be impossible, or at least impossibly expensive, to build a flexible cockpit. But once they realized that the Air Force wasn't going to budge, suddenly it was possible. And it turned out it wasn't that expensive. And in fact, they made great strides, leveraging simple solutions that we all take for granted in our everyday lives, like adjustable seats. And as a result, the Air Force not only improved the performance of the pilots that they already had, but they dramatically expanded their talent pool. And today, we have the most diverse pool of fighter pilots ever. But here's the thing. Many of our top pilots would have never fit in a cockpit designed on average. So most of us have never sat in the cockpit of a $150 million fighter jet, right? But we've all sat in the classroom. And I would argue I would argue that these are the cockpits of our economy. And I think we all know that we have some problems. We're spending more money than ever before, but we're getting worse results. Whether we're talking about declining test scores in math and science, or our dropout crisis. You probably know that we have over 1.2 million dropouts every single year in high school in this country. What you may not know is that at least 4% of those dropouts are known to be intellectually gifted. That means we're losing over 50,000 of our brightest minds every single year. So we know we have a problem, but do we know why? So
if we design to the average, we'll only accommodate average students. Think about how you design your classrooms. What is your best practice to elicit the talents of all of your students? Again, if you wouldn't mind picking up your phones, we're going to use the Mentimeter again. And we're going to ask that you share your best practices in class to make sure that we're not losing our students. Include activities for various learning types. Awesome. I think someone knows where we're going with this. Having stronger students working with those struggling. Give choices. Vary the delivery format. Individualized instruction and assessment. Get to know your students. Ask the students about their experiences. Play to strengths. Don't assume. Oh, don't assume easy access to resources. Excellent. Can you scroll up? Provide instructional videos for assignments and chapter study guides. Awesome idea. These are fantastic. Thank you for sharing. So some of these best practices that you've shared with us, they're phenomenal. We're going to talk a little bit more about how they fit into what we're doing and why they are best practices.
Before we do that, I'm just going to take a quick break. Make sure we don't have any pressing questions here. Oh, see, now we can see how the reason for Menti. I think that was supposed to go in a different area. That's okay. Great. So now you can see the use of Menti, where when there's a break in the conversation, we can go through the questions from the students. And this, I have found, I use this in the classroom all the time. And I found I hear from students who wouldn't normally raise their hand because they don't want others to know that they don't understand. But you can see here that there's no name attached to it, so they can feel comfortable asking questions or giving opinions on matters. And I've gotten a lot of questions about Menti in the past, and it is a free tool if you want to use just like 4 or 5 question slides. It imports your PowerPoint. It's a great thing to try. So I want to talk to you a little bit more about universal design for learning. And what this is, it provides choices, as many of you mentioned in your best practices. But universal design really pinpoints 3 different areas: multiple means of representation, multiple means of expression, and multiple means of engagement. So I want to just lay it out very simply for you. What is universal design for learning? So picture yourself. You are going to a wedding. It's one of those long traditional weddings where you went to the church, you sat through the whole service, then you did pictures, you finally get to the reception and you're starving. First, you have to mingle with everyone and you're just waiting to sit down to eat. You sit down and there's a great dinner presented to you. Everyone gets the same thing, which is easy for who's ever cooking that meal. We'll say it's a glazed chicken breast on top of some creamed spinach, maybe some creamy mashed potatoes with it, a basket of bread. This is great if you aren't vegetarian, lactose intolerant, or gluten-free, or even worse, all of those, and now you have nothing to eat. Compared to walking into the reception and seeing a buffet of all the choices you could have. Not only are you now able to fulfill yourself, but you're also able to go throughout the rest of the night being satisfied and being able to contribute more because you have some substance to work with. So that's kind of the premise of universal design for learning, is to provide these choices so people are more comfortable in learning. So what universal design for learning is, if you're not aware of it, it was developed through an organization called CAST, C-A-S-T, which stands for Center for Applied Special Technology. It adjusts the curriculum and instructional methods so that they're used by all people rather than just accommodating individual needs. So think about when you get that, if you're an instructor and you are just beginning to start class and you get that accommodation request. And then you have to go back and change everything you've already designed. That's time consuming and you're doing it last minute. What universal design for learning does, it allows you to make these accommodations before getting that request, or in most cases, I will say. And this has actually been recognized by the Higher Education Opportunity Act. So it's useful in higher education. And I'm going to tell you what it's defined as in this act. It's a scientifically valid framework for guiding educational practice that provides flexibilities in ways information is presented, in ways students respond or demonstrate knowledge and skills, and in ways students are engaged, and reduces barriers in instruction, provides appropriate accommodation, support, and challenges, and maintains high achievement expectation for all students, including students with disabilities and students who are limited English proficient. So being recognized in this Higher Education Opportunity Act only demonstrates how meaningful this platform is. So I want to go ahead and show you a little, kind of give you the background behind it, but I'm going to start with the why. Why I personally chose to modify my courses to use Universal Design for Learning. I teach in accounting, which is not a fun subject for many people. Many people struggle in this course, so it's not unusual, unfortunately, for me to not pass at least 30% of my students. It's just a difficult course. So it's hard for me to see if somebody is struggling for that they're just not motivated, or if they don't understand, or if they're really having a problem. So come the last week of this one particular course, I had a woman come up to me and she said, I'm really struggling. I'm afraid I'm not going to pass. And we looked at her grades and she was struggling. And she told me, I have little to no short-term memory. And the reason for this is I was in a domestic abuse situation and I lost that ability because of abuse. She said, and I was not saying the right thing. And I said, well, why didn't you come to me earlier? Wrong thing to say. I admit that now. But she said, every time she has to explain that story, she relives that situation. And we shouldn't put our students through that. It shouldn't matter what reason they have. What we want to do is make sure they're successful going forward. So that's why I do Universal Design for Learning. And I've seen it help so many other students. And I want to show you and share with you why this framework has been developed. So it was developed through neuroscience and educational research, and it helped to develop these three principles. It's representation, expression, and engagement. The representation principle, that's the first one you see on your screen with the purple, that's the what of learning. So what this does is it helps students identify and make connections. For example, maybe utilizing a case study that a student can relate to so they can understand the topic a little bit more, or introducing techniques like think, pair, share that encourages creative problem solving. The next principle is expression, and that's the strategic network of your brain. It helps to plan, organize, and use information. So examples of expression would be like promoting group study work that supports learning, or giving strategies to help communicate to others what we know and understand. Or it's as simple as making sure you provide timely feedback and assessment so that people know how they're doing and what they need to change. And the last area we're going to talk about is engagement. The engagement principle is the affective network of your brain, and it monitors the environment, it sets priorities, it motivates and engages learners. This is how we get them to learn, hook them into a lesson, and then provide structure so they can follow through. Examples of this would be like using circular seating, so they can encourage discussion, or maybe using technology like the Mentimeter, or videos and clickers or podcasts, just providing that a variety of different ways to learn the topic or content. So one thing that universal design for learning is known for is to know what the goal is. Be firm on that goal, but just be flexible on how they get there. For example, I teach, again, in accounting. People need to learn financial statements. I don't care if they do problems to get there, if they research a company and find how these financial statements are presented, or if they want to give me a report, either a visual report, a written report, make a video, whatever that is, as long as they can demonstrate the knowledge that they were supposed to obtain. And one thing I do with my students at the beginning of each semester is I have them make their own goals. And I have them identify what in the past has stopped you from achieving this type of goal. What are those barriers? And then I make them label what can they do to address these barriers? And what can I do as the instructor to help them? The biggest one I've seen, I know we've mentioned this in previous questions, is like the time management. Our students are so busy, especially at the community college level. They're working full time, most likely taking care of family members, either children or parents, and trying to juggle a full course load. Time management is one of the biggest barriers that our students have. So I ask my students, what do you have to give up? What do you have to do to address that barrier? Whether it is deleting a game off your phone or giving up social media. And from my end, then I ask them what they need help with. Do you need more reminders of due dates? Do you need constant motivation? Do we need to sit down on a monthly basis and say, where are you at? Where do you need to go? Again, the point is to get them to succeed and to reach their goals. So some of the tools that I like to use to vary my options for universal design for learning. And there's many out there. I just grabbed a couple. One is the Mentimeter I'm showing you. My students really enjoy Quizlet or other platforms like Kahoot. But Quizlet, I have an example here, gives you those flashcards. I imported all the pictures so they get a visual to go with the definition for a memory. But this also allows them to build their own tests, play some games. And in the classroom, you could play Quizlet Live, which is just always a fun game. The guided note maker, you can go ahead and search that. It's a super fun tool where you just make some notes and you can highlight words. And then it makes them a word list and students have to fill that in. Flipgrid. UDL offers a planning worksheet that helps you with that. You can search that online. And Rewordify is a really cool tool that goes ahead and makes text a little bit easier to understand. So we all understand, and you can read the benefits here of UDL. We want to acknowledge that it does take a lot of time to do this, but I think it's definitely worth the effort. Not only will students feel more comfortable and achieve more success, but I think it really remotivates us as instructors. And I think right now, especially after teaching online for a year and a half, we all need a little bit more motivation. So just a quick, if you want to jot down these resources, UDL on Campus, that's specifically for higher education. Some great tools, cast.org. And then if you need to learn more about those guidelines and those 3 principles, you can go to udlguidelines.cast.org. So if you want to just jot those down real quick and do some more research later, more than happy to even send those out to you later if you don't get them now.
We all do what we do every day because we love it. because we're all in this to enrich the lives of our students and to make sure that their journey is as enriching as it can be. We want to thank you for sharing your time with us this morning. And we want you to know that if you have any questions at all, our email addresses are at the bottom of this page. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you have after today. But we'd like to know if you have any questions today. So if you do, we would like you to put them up on, again, pick up your phones with Menti. You can write down any questions that you may have. And we want to kind of reiterate that designing our courses to change the environment to meet the needs of all of our students, it can be a very daunting thought and definitely a daunting task. But this is not meant to be done overnight. Rather, it's a process. It's a process in work, and where you're working new ideas into your courses one step at a time. It doesn't need to be done in one semester. It can be done over time, and each time you do something, you're only enhancing your lessons and making your lessons more available and more equitable to your students. Okay, does anybody have any questions?
If we have no, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I said if we have no more questions, if we don't have any questions, I want to thank Nancy and Cammy for their presentations today. I'd also like to let you know that there will not be individual surveys for sessions, that you will receive an overall conference survey that you should be receiving in a few days after the conference. So I would like to again thank you. Thank you for your participation, and we will release you to go to your next session. Thank you so much, Cammy and Nancy.
Thank you so
everyone.
much. Bye, everybody.
Have a great day.
Enjoy.